Hey guys, Montel here, and welcome to this edition of Let's Be Blunt with Montel. My guest today holds a master's degree in business administration from Xavier University with a concentration in project management and a bachelor's degree in management and information technology from Aurora University. He has served as an adjunct professor at City Colleges of Chicago. He is also a member of the National Cannabis Industry Association, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee, and he also co-chairs the Cannabis Business Association of Illinois Minority Access Community. He is an entrepreneur, a social justice advocate, focused on facilitating opportunity in a climate for unprecedented, historically marginalized communities. He is the CEO of Haze Cannabis. Winston McCauley, thank you so much for joining us today on Let's Be Blunt, sir.
Thank you, Montel, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to speaking with you and talking about this important work.
Absolutely. Let's go back a little bit, my friend, and let's talk about, a little bit more of your background. I gave you your college bona fides, but let's where'd you grow up?
Absolutely. So I was born in Pennsylvania, West Philadelphia. My father worked for GE. My mother was a professor, and my father got a job transfer to Central Illinois. And so I grew up in Central Illinois and ended up going to graduating from Chicago or in school in the Chicago area. So really growing up in Illinois, getting my education and corporate experience in the Chicago area, and now bringing that back to the area that I grew up in, and building community from here.
So now, were you always interested in cannabis? Were you just a dabbler on your own? I mean, what turned you on to the cannabis community, and when did you get started?
Yeah, so I got started. I was introduced to cannabis at the age of 15 through just casual use. But at the same time, I had already been working at McDonald's for a year. So I had started to understand how to make money, how the business world kind of works. And the individuals I was hanging out with at the time, they were much older than me. So they were pushing a older mindset onto me. It was a little bit more than just smoking cannabis. It was conversation around why is this not legal and what would it take for it to become legal. So I was going through a period where I was being introduced to cannabis at the same time I was being introduced to the workforce. And all along, I'm still in the classroom. So it was just an interesting dynamic as those three, work streams were kind of developing within.
And I mean, so you're going to college. Really put yourself back in that college mindset? Were you thinking back then that, I may take my interest in cannabis and turn this into a business, or were you thinking about an entirely different field?
I was thinking about a completely different field. I grew up in Central Illinois playing soccer, and that took a lot of time. It took a lot of time away from social activities, always traveling. And so by the time I got to a point of going to college, I was looking to gain that freedom back, and I had a passion for music. I played the piano before. I played the drums. So I actually went to Hampton University as a music engineering technology major and was on their drum line for my freshman year. I never let go of cannabis. I never let go of my entrepreneurial mindset, and that started to get me in trouble. So I actually got kicked out of Hampton after my freshman year, had to go to Winston-Salem State in North Carolina for a semester just to get my GPA up. And that's when I made the transfer back to Illinois in the Chicago area. And that's how I ended up at Aurora University.
You weren't kicked out for cannabis.
I was kicked. They knew about my involvement with cannabis, but I was kicked out for fighting and other behavioral related incidents.
Were you dabbling in a little entrepreneurial cannabis business?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you got you cut your teeth on, or laid your track record down by doing some, well, let's say black market sales.
Yes, absolutely. I was taking risks that I should have never taken, especially someone who's going to college. So it was a little bit more than just, being in Virginia and dabbling in cannabis. I was, moving things from Chicago to Virginia. And so, those risks, luckily I didn't get caught up in a way that would prevent me from pursuing other opportunities, but I got in enough trouble to understand that I needed to shift my focus, at least to take school a little more serious.
Gotcha. And I mean, they clearly you have a professional family, so they must have known a little bit about this, right?
Absolutely. If I go back to high school, I mean, my mother used to occasionally take me to get drug tested. There was a period in time where she tried to enroll me in, um, a facility where, a residential facility for, drug abuse or,
Just for
uh,
cannabis use.
even though I was using, it was just cannabis. You know, we grew up being told that cannabis is a gateway drug and that it can lead to other things. So I think the fear was, everyone knows he's using cannabis. Let's get ahead of it before it gets to something else, was the belief. So um, everyone in my circle, my family has always known that cannabis has been something close to me. And there was a strong effort for a period of time to, you know, essentially remove cannabis from my life.
But I guess now everybody looks back at those times and recognizes that, when you've seen what years were you talking about here, around the time?
99 to 2003 is when I was in high school. And
Mhm.
then 2003 to 2007 is when I was in college.
And back then, that's when most of, I remember I started my advocacy back in 2000, really 2001. And, I think conversations were starting to become more robust about legalization, especially from a medical standpoint. As a matter of fact, back in 2006, 7, 8, there was state after state after state coming on. About 9 states had already approved medical cannabis. So, what was the attitude of those people who were the naysayers on your behalf?
Um, that didn't matter to them, what was going on in other states or what was transpiring around the country. I think for them, it was, um, I have the ability to pursue a career in the legal environment if I wanted to. I have the ability to do something in business. Um, I had a very sound understanding of information technology. So it was more, you have all these opportunities and you can put yourself in a position where you can excel at a rate that many people can't. So you shouldn't even be considering or associating with cannabis. Whereas who I am as a person, I've always been someone that kind of shakes things up. So I always challenge the status quo. Getting into corporate America, it was always, you can't have hair. You have to have a low haircut. Well, I challenged that, and that's when I started growing my hair. So it's just I always believe that there are certain things that are being taken into consideration that don't truly define someone's ability to perform. And so I've always taken that with me. And so even though my parents, family, friends, associates were trying to push me in a different direction, um, I would hear the things they would say and I would take it as a challenge, as you're saying this, but I think I can pull it off. And so I fought them tooth and nail in it. And to be honest with you, a lot of my family hasn't found out anything that I've accomplished in the cannabis industry until the past few months, simply because I didn't want that pushback.
Well, okay, so you go ahead and you go to school, you keeping it quiet. Were you still dabbling a little bit in some sales and entrepreneurship then in college
Until 2017, yes.
till 2017, and then you graduated, and then you decided to jump in with both feet. Is that right?
Yeah, yes. Well, I graduated, I finished at Aurora University in 2007, but I was already interning at Sidley Austin in corporate America in 2006. So Sidley Austin is a law firm that President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama met at. So I was fortunate enough to get into this prestigious law firm as an intern. And I knew that I needed to stay in school an extra semester because the school I went to was so small. They didn't offer the same courses in the fall and the spring. And I was a double minor in computer science and sales. So I made a proposal to Sidley Austin to get an internship for the summer of 2007 while I finished my degree and then get the part-time position. And they came back and granted me all of that and told me they would bring me on full time. which was key because this is during the subprime mortgage crisis. So they kept their word, and them keeping their word allowed me to purchase my first property at the age of 23. So all those things happening um, started to expose me to a world that uh, I hadn't been exposed to yet, but I could truly benefit from. So this is my first real estate purchase. Um, Now going through these times where across the country, you're seeing people's salaries froze for a year or two, no bonuses are taking place, but they put me in a position to start to set the foundation up for my life. That's what pushed me to going back to school, and that's when I went to St. Xavier to get the MBA in project management. I finished the program in a year and a half in Sidley, Austin. The management had mentored me so well, and they had invested so much time and energy into me. They actually pushed me out of the organization because they felt like it would cripple me from achieving my true potential.
Wow.
So I went from working in IT at Sidley Austin as a quality assurance analyst, but I now have this formal education around project management. Um, they helped me understand the gap that existed, which was I had never done any business analysis. So instead of them pushing me out the door and making me go, pursue whatever it thought it was, or telling me to go become a project manager because that's the degree I had, it was pushing me towards becoming a business analyst because business analytics sits between quality assurance and project management, and really making sure there were no gaps in my learning and experience. And so fast forward, I've spent time at 3 corporate law firms, and I'm now working at my second consulting company. So all of this is happening, and I'm seeing what's happening in Illinois and around the country with cannabis. And I actually said to myself, I want to go get certified to work in a dispensary. And so I went and got the dispensary agent certification back in August 2019. And I just remember after getting that certification, sitting back and not being as excited as I was when I signed up for the class or the course, because I realized I just put myself in a position to repeat all of the challenges that I had experienced in corporate America. I was mentored and grew in a way in corporate America where there were certain goals and things that I believed I could achieve based off my education, based off of the individuals that were mentoring me, based off the exposure and experiences I was gaining. And I started to realize those things weren't happening. And I started to realize why. And so this was a moment when I said, I have a chance to get into the cannabis industry, but I'm about to repeat the same process of being an employee instead of an employer. And so that is when I shifted focus and said, okay, I know where I come from. I have a good understanding of what the community needs. I have good intentions. I have this network around me. Let's see if we can put all this together and actually do something worthwhile instead of just talk about it. And that's when we went both feet in.
And that was what, about 2016, 2017?
That was 2019. That
19.
was 2019, when we decided to go all in and pursue cannabis licenses in Illinois.
But now you got your license to be able to work in a cannabis facility. Did you do some work in some cannabis places?
No, no, I did not. I got the license to work in a facility, or I completed the dispensary agent training to work in a dispensary. Um, but when I understood what work I would be doing in the dispensary and where I wanted to be in the industry, I didn't think it was a viable path, especially based off the experience I was bringing to the table. So, um, never worked in the dispensary, just shifted my focus to understanding and filling the gaps on the legislation side, and what it would take to become an owner. And so started with phone call to uh, my best friend's father, who was a police sergeant. Asked him if I pursued this, if he would support me. It was an immediate yes. Second phone call was to my real estate agent. And from there, started putting the team together by just accessing my network.
And then you put a team together that applied for several licenses. What kind of licenses did you apply for?
Yes. So through the research and as putting the team together, uh, actually applied for an incubator. We actually were rejected, told we couldn't get into the incubator. But when the rejection came through, it also said that we should continue with applying for the state, applying with the state. And I found that odd because if we weren't good enough to get into the incubator with a cultivator, how could we convince the state? So I just tried to read between the lines. And I just felt like, we were being pushed in a way that we needed to consider. I was working with a consultant at the time and came to the realization that even though I had put a team together based off of my network, we did not have the legal experience that was necessary to show the state how we would remain in compliance if granted a license. We also did not have capital that we felt was significant to really show that we would be serious. So we had to understand what we had and how it would apply, and then understand our shortcomings. There was a period of time when I contacted a consultant and told them that I would actually wait another year or two. But they were so intrigued with the team we had put together, and they were working with another team that they felt the same way about, and they had certain shortcomings that we were able to fill. They actually told us that they would make an introduction, but would not broker the relationship. And that's how I met my business partner. Essentially, I felt like I met an individual that um, was very comparable to who I am as an individual. And I felt like I met someone that I had never met in my life before in terms of being just as smart, as ambitious, willing, just as risk adverse. There were just a lot of similarities. So at this point, the application had came out. Application for the licenses we were applying for, craft grow, infuser, and transporter, came out in January 2020. And we did not finalize our partnership until the last week of January. So we actually cut 3-4 weeks out of our application time just to make sure that this was a business marriage we were both comfortable with. I mean, we met in person, first time ever. We had everything from our credit reports, lease agreements, college transcripts, arrest records. We opened up to one another in a way that I have never opened up to anyone. In certain aspects, I feel like he knows me better than some of my family members, and vice versa.
And so, again, did your partner have experience in the business before you?
Yes, yes. And so basically, our business partnership allowed us to increase involvement at the national level through the National Cannabis Industry Association. We're both involved in the National Cannabis Industry Association. Um, he's done a lot in the food safety and auditing space. So gaining a direct line to food scientists, food chemists, uh, understanding, the audit work he's done in both the food space as well as in the cannabis space. So really, us forming a partnership, creates a unique situation because there are existing operators that have leaned on us for experience, um, or to help them, standardize some of their procedures, for example. And so putting a team together where we have that deep of insight into what it takes to be successful was key. And this is a business marriage that allows all that to happen.
So you applied for multiple licenses. How many did you get?
Yes, we applied for 3 licenses, craft grow, infuser, and transporter. Uh, in the middle of July, we were notified that we met the requirements to receive a transporter license and the infuser license. We're also hopeful that in the coming months, whether that's 6 months from now, 9 months from now, uh, that we get our craft grow license. And so we're moving forward with our business. We took a unique approach. This is bigger than cannabis for us. We wanted to create a company where cannabis and community meet. So we are really focused on boosting an area that has been considered a food desert, disproportionately impacted area. And we've done so by acquiring enough real estate to apply mixed use themes around cannabis that can help improve the area uh, and those who reside in that community.
Well, it's interesting because Illinois is you have different legislative processes than other states. So let's
Hmm.
talk a little bit about that situation. I mean, you don't have a storefront? You have a laboratory. When you say infuser, is that a processing laboratory? You have
Yes,
to buy. So you have to buy your constituent parts from a grower,
correct.
and then
Correct.
you can then infuse and make infuse edible products. Can you make?
Correct. We edibles, topicals, beverages. We're actually sitting down right now and really defining our product list or our prospective product list. So we're going through that right now. But yes, so in Illinois, the craft grow license gives you the ability to grow, extract, and infuse. And then you have a license, an infuser license that gives you the ability to infuse only. And then you have a transporter license that gives you the ability to transport cannabis between the growers and infusers in the state and the licensed dispensaries throughout the state. So the transporter license is not a home delivery license. It is more of
B2B
a
license.
license. Exactly. So people ask all the time, well, are the other craft growers or infusers your competitor? And the answer is yes. But at the same time, it's understanding what you have to offer, what they have to offer, and if you can do a dance in a way that you can be strategic partners, knowing that you're going to compete in certain aspects. So, as someone that has an infuser license right now and a transporter license, as you stated, we cannot think about going into business without making a strategic partnership with a cultivator or craft grower in the state. At the same time, we know that there are craft growers in the state or dispensary owners in the state that don't have a transporter license. So, right there is an opportunity to understand, okay, I need something from you, and you might need something from me. How do we make this work uh, logistically? And so, navigating that. That is how you get the importance of the trade associations, like the Cannabis Business Association of
So
Illinois.
you can I mean, theoretically, you can infuse, make your own brand of product, and make a deal with a dispensary that you'll help them get their raw product if they put your product on their shelves.
Exactly. Or I could
And
say to a
they will have their own white label products on their shelves.
correct. Or I could say to a craft grower that has a craft grow license but doesn't have a transporter license, I can help transport for you and get your products to the various dispensaries or parts of the state that you are targeting.
To the processors, to the dispensary.
To the processors or to the dispensaries.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it. And are you up and running now, or you're still forming? You haven't opened doors yet. You're already making sales. Is
Yeah,
it
no, we're not up and running at the moment. So we just got notified on July 15th of our licenses. So maybe just over 2 weeks ago. However, we had already secured our real estate. So we have over 250,000 square feet of real estate that we've already secured. We have been working with our architect and general contractor, it seems like daily. So we're just, we have to set up the back office. So there's a lot of things that now that we know we have the licenses that we're just finalizing. But we're starting our build out later this month.
it just bodes as a question. I mean, is your partner African American also?
Yes.
So, I mean, how difficult was that for you in the state of Illinois, or was that not that difficult? I mean, as a lot of states have talked about, equity in the, licensing. Is there equity in licensing in Illinois?
Uh, it's a great question. So I think I think one of the things that a lot of individuals who aren't as close to the industry question is, how is social equity being defined? And so I think if you talk to someone who is not as involved in the legal industry or the legalization of this industry, they would probably come up with a different definition of social equity than how it's being defined across the country in various states. To answer your question, uh, is social equity taking form in the industry? Yes. Um, is there room for improvement? There is great room for improvement. Um, and I think the challenges around that are, number one, making sure that people understand the process ahead of time. I talked to a lot of people when I was getting ready to apply saying, hey, we're about to do this. And they would say something like, yeah, we're going to apply for those licenses when they come out. It doesn't work like that. Once the licenses are out, they're out. You know what I mean? You can't go back. And so it's helping people understand the process from beginning to end in enough time so that they can have a fair shot of getting in the industry. It is creating a definition for social equity that is truly going to benefit those that were harmed by the war on drugs. Our company, if we look at, you know, the archetypes of our company or the individuals that we felt like our beliefs most followed, we walked away with two individuals. One of them was Spike Lee, and the other one was Tyler Perry. And when we look at the Spike Lee aspect of things, Spike Lee has always talked about being prepared for opportunities. And so that's kind of what I'm speaking about in terms of, making sure that we get information out to prospective applicants in enough time for them to understand the process from beginning to end, because the only reason we're here and we're enduring this level of success is because we were prepared for the opportunity. And then you look at Tyler Perry and talks about how since he owns everything, his returns are just higher. And so it's, going back to what I said earlier, it's that mindset of understanding the difference between being an employer and an employee. And if you take that same mindset and then you look at the way social equity is being defined in some states, et cetera, that's where you can see a little bit of friction, because Black and brown people have been dabbling in the cannabis space for years. It is something that a lot of us know very well. Um, to then have this industry become legal or go through the legalization process, and yet the same people who have been maneuvering through this space for years are now being offered positions that are only $1 to $4 above minimum wage. That, to me, that is not true social equity, because that is not putting those individuals in the position where they can create generational wealth. They're just taking on a job in an industry that they're probably more passionate about and probably more knowledgeable about. But is it really going to help change their lives and the lives of those that they care most about if they're just above minimum wage and they're working in an industry where still, let's say 25% still don't have any health benefits, or where you have about 40% of people who don't even have any retirement benefits? These are the things that make me pause when people say, is there social equity in the industry? You see more people taking on these jobs, but they're not being presented opportunities that can really move mountains for them or the ones that they care about.
Hmm. So now, how many employees do you have right now? And you have a brand, right?
We have a brand. We've already gone through the process of, doing our brand folio. We have our logo, everything's, already patent trademarked, all that good stuff. At full capacity, we anticipate employing between 40 to 45 employees. Those numbers will be skewed a little bit until we get our craft row license, since we'll just be operating an infuser and transporter. But again, we're working on some unique strategic partnerships. And again, because we have secured the area that we're operating in, we're trying to create opportunities outside of cannabis. So for example, we're talking about bringing a grocery store and pharmacy to this food desert and disproportionately impacted area. bringing some housing options and things of those sorts.
That's what you're doing through this process or through the program that you have. It's a mentor program for small businesses and small business
Yes.
leaders. Talk a little bit about that for a minute.
Yeah. So really, it kind of just goes back to, again, the Tyler Perry comment about, you know, owning everything, and creating those higher returns so that you're in the position to really help and make the impact or the change and the impact that you see fit. So, you know, again, I might have gotten in trouble, but I still came out of, a college and university. I still spent time in corporate America. I still interact and network with people that have the same interests, and have experienced the same things as me, whether it was not being able to move up in corporate America, whether it was having certain credentials and still having to deal with a certain pay level. And so really over the years, as you start to go through these things, when you go into corporate America, the room starts to change. And as that room changes, when you do see someone that looks like you, or you do see someone that you can relate to, you tend to form a relationship just because of that level of synergy that you two share. And so over the years, I mean, at Aurora University, I was a peer advisor. So there was a period of time that I mentored about 30 freshman students. I was also a uh, resident hall assistant. So I had a floor of uh, students that I was responsible for. Um, Participated in student government. Uh, Talked about Sidley Austin. Spent time at Toastmasters, understanding public speaking. So going through all these different venues, I like to read. Putting myself around individuals that like to read, you start to hear about other ideas and the desires of others and the ways that other people believe they can change the world or positively impact the world. And so as those things happen and you start to progress in life and you see others progressing in life, again, a common just relationship starts to take place. And so I sit back and I look at, man, this cannabis opportunity came to us. And even though there was a year delay, we understood the advantages we had of being outside of Chicago and how that positioned us financially, how that positioned us from ability to work with government, less red tape. And so as we saw these opportunities mature, we understood that we had an opportunity much bigger than cannabis. So again, we were just tapping our network and reaching out to people we've already had relationships with, we already communicated with. We just shifted the conversation to be more serious because now we have something to offer. Now we've, positioned ourselves in a way where we can unite and create strategic partnerships. So an example would be, there's a young lady in my network that uh, has been doing a lot in Illinois' education space. And she would like to have almost like a Black literature cafe. And so these are some of the ideas and things that we have helped her with to get started. My business partner has a nonprofit where he helps small businesses improve their food safety and quality practices. Um, Going into That's something that he was already doing because he comes out of the food safety industry. But now we're talking about, we have cannabis licenses. Well, edibles are still a form of food. So there is still a level of food safety that needs to be taken into consideration. And who better to assist in those avenues than someone who's coming from the highly regulated food industry? Um, my younger brother, he's an anesthesiologist. So looking at him and some of the individuals that he went to Duke University with and their respect and passion for cannabis, there are opportunities there for, research opportunities. Um, so, and then again, I bought my first piece of real estate at a young age. So over the years, when I went into consulting, I formed a real estate company. At the time, I was in the mindset of just trying to protect myself. Let me not rent this out to someone, they pull a slip and fall and they come for my personal stuff. So I created a company to protect myself, and but not knowing that that company would be a catalyst for me to get into the real estate space and pursue other opportunities. So um, just yesterday, for example, we uh, secured a lounge or bar that could be an opportunity to again secure an area and grow businesses for our community. So um,
Does Illinois allow for like on-site consumption of cannabis in like a bar setting or?
um, that's a great question. So a couple weeks ago, there was the first consumption lounge, I believe, that opened in Southern Illinois, but I believe people have to bring their own cannabis, and then I don't understand. I'm not certain on the insurance aspects and how they're getting around that, because I would believe that there's a lot of risk around people coming to your facility using cannabis and then leaving at a certain time. But I know the first one was open in Southern Illinois about 3, 4 weeks ago.
Gotcha. Is that part of the, I don't know a lot about the Illinois law, so you'd have to help me with this because I know in California and several other places around the country, New York is going to have fully operational consumption facilities where you can go in and consume cannabis on location. It's part of the license. Is that part of what's going on in Illinois too?
There's no consumption licenses in Illinois right now, and that's why I'm a little intrigued on exactly what they're doing at this location in Southern Illinois, like how they pulled it off. But um, the area that we chose to operate out of for our infuser, our transporter, and craft grow in the future, that area has already been zoned for consumption lounges. So I know it's something that is coming in Illinois. When officially, I'm not for certain. There are no consumption licenses that someone can apply for. So I'm just kind of, I don't know if it was just through work with the local municipality or what that is, but I see that coming in the future. Yes. I think delivery will come in the future in Illinois as well. But I
There
see
is
that
not,
happening.
is there currently delivery at all in Illinois? Not
There's
even
no
by,
delivery.
got
No
it.
delivery in Illinois right now at all. I see it in the future, but if we're being honest, I think the crime situation with the car theft and a lot of that stuff is going to have to get, a little bit better under control before legislators are really comfortable pushing that ball.
Sure thing. I mean, well, let's talk a little bit about the industry because you know that this industry is in a state of flux. I think
Yep.
first off, because every single state has its own, every single municipality has its own rules, regulations. Every state has its own rules, regulations. You can't cross state lines. You can
Hmm.
try to do non-THC hemp products and not hemp products.
Yep.
Are you doing those also?
Yes, we do plan on. So while we wait for our craft grow license, we do plan on cultivating hemp in the interim.
Does that have to go through a separate license?
It does have to go through a separate license, but it's not a competitive application process. It's as of last year, it was literally a $1,500 fee to the state of Illinois. You let them know the location, have them come out and certify and approve the location, and that's how you can get your hemp cultivation license. And then there's another $1,500 fee in application if you want to do the processing.
And you would not be able to, you couldn't do the processing in the same facility that you're using for the THC product.
I could, but I probably wouldn't.
Well, you'd have to separate them in some way inside the
Yeah,
facility.
and then just taking the size of the facility into consideration is where I'm hesitant there. Just
Got
because
it.
we'll have a transporter and infuser and other operations, so I just want to make sure I'm respectful of space.
Sure. I mean, yeah, and also I'm sure that there's some sort of overseeing or over supervising kind of a
Yep,
situation, right?
yep,
Yeah.
definitely. And then have to work with the state police on security and reporting and make sure the appropriate departments have access to your systems, etc. So I mean, we're playing a compliance game, so definitely don't want to do anything being too ambitious that's going to increase risk.
So as of today, though, you have no products in the marketplace.
That is correct.
And when do you think you're going to be ready to launch your or put your first product out?
Well, we're actually trying to see if we can get a product or two on the market before the end of the year. So we're having those conversations right now. Part of those conversations is understanding how soon we can have certain aspects of our facility ready. So we're targeting to have something, if possible, out this year, just for, if nothing else, individuals to sample. But we're looking at a 12 to 16 month build out if we're just looking at building from beginning to end. Now, what we're also working though is understanding how to phase out that 12 to 16 month build out, because we can phase it out in a way where maybe we can start creating products sooner rather than later.
Are you considering doing any white labeling? I'm asking that as a personal because I have products that are out and available around the world that are going to be available around the world and have already had hemp products in the marketplace, CBD products in the marketplace, also THC infused products in the marketplace. But every single state, again, is individual. So, if I was going to sell a product in Illinois, I have to find a processor and someone who has a cultivation license to be able to get my raw product in to be able to. Are you white labeling?
Yes, that is something that we've already been in conversations with groups about. Uh, the the building that we selected, one of the reasons we selected that building is because it would put us in a position where we could essentially lease out a floor of our building to, let's say, an entity that's not in the state of Illinois that wants to get into the market, um, and allow them to essentially come in under our license, and we just manage that for them. So those are opportunities that
You're looking
we're
at.
open to, and we already have one group that hopefully this week we'll get that contract solidified. So yeah, we do, and that's part of the reason we secure so much real estate, is for opportunities like that and to make people as comfortable as possible.
That's interesting. Well, let's offline have an offline conversation about that. I mean, off the podcast, but that's one of the things that I'm looking to make sure that I can get my brand out across the country, and I'm going to need facilities like yours to do so.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. We can definitely talk about that.
Sure thing. So, what do you think? I mean, let's look at this as an industry. I have been, I'm on a campaign, or I'd say a tirade, more so, to convince this industry that as we broaden our messages from a B2B standpoint,
Hmm.
we've really missed the boat as an industry
Hmm.
in
Yep.
broadening our messages from a B2C standpoint, meaning business to the consumer.
Hmm.
It's all great having as big a business as you want, but if the consumer is not convinced to buy your product, you're wasting time. What are
Yep.
you doing in that educational space to help the consumers better understand that cannabis is a viable option for them and their family?
Yeah. Education is huge for us. Again, going back to opportunities and being prepared. We feel like we're building a kingdom, and the key to that kingdom is education. So this is something that was very important to both my business partner and I when we were building our team, because understanding the space that we're going in, we understand that people like to hold on to information, and we didn't want to create a team that, we were going to have our head cultivator and he didn't want to share information with our cultivation manager, or etc. We wanted to remove all of that. So we went out to find not only the most experienced individuals that we believe we related the best to, but also individuals who were passionate about education, because we understood the many ways that the industry is essentially dropping the ball. So um, right now in Illinois, through the Cannabis Business Association of Illinois, and just the networking opportunities there, we're working with a group of individuals to expand the uh, cultivation curriculum to community colleges, 2-year and 4-year colleges across the state. Um, this is essentially starting to create your pipeline of future growers, um, and dispensary agents, transporters, etc. So we're doing that work, working directly with key individuals in the state. Um, Both my business partner and I are involved in the National Cannabis Industry Association. So through the DEI committee, Policy Council Manufacturing Committee. We've been involved there, trying to really get things in place that are going to educate those who have applied and are waiting for licenses, those who are new license holders, or those who are interested in applying in the future. And then again, we have Winter Haze Cannabis, but we also created the Winter Haze Project, which is our nonprofit, which is solely focused on helping individuals navigate the Illinois cannabis industry. So whether that is individuals wanting to learn more about cannabis in Illinois, or whether that is individuals who are looking to get involved with cannabis in Illinois, this is something that we want to kind of lead the charge with on a smaller scale through our company. So,
listen, I mean, I applaud you because, again, what you're talking about, though, is literally more B2B education, more
mm-hmm,
business to business education, growing and turning this business into a viable,
mm-hmm,
but without the consumer,
mm-hmm,
I think it's like we're all wasting our time. We're spinning our wheels. Because,
true,
you know,
true,
if we don't get out and start educating grandma down the street, or
yep,
educating
yep,
Clyde over here and Phil over
yep,
there and Sarah
yep,
over there, what are you doing to help create an atmosphere where you're reaching out? You know, if you look at the pharmaceutical industry, you know,
mm-hmm,
why is it that every time you turn on your television, you see 1,000 ads? Every show is filled with at least 5 30-second commercials and a couple 1 minute
mm-hmm,
commercials on some product that's a
mm-hmm,
brand new pharmaceutical drug. It's
yep,
not so that the dispenser, no, so that the pharmacist over here can tell the pharmacist over there about a drug. It's so that the drug manufacturer can tell the consumer about a drug that they're hoping that the consumer walks into the doctor's office and says, "Have you heard about Umptifrats?" And the doctor goes, "No, I haven't." "Well, I saw this commercial." "Well, did you really?" Then the doctor picks up the phone, calls the pharmacy, or calls the pharmaceutical company and says, "Hey, I'd like to be a rep because I've got 20 people walking to my door asking for your drug." And then they go over to talk to him. They put some of the drugs on his counter. When people come in for a regular doctor's visit, they get that drug. Then that's what starts them moving the ball. I mean, you know, remember
mm-hmm,
they hired way back, Bob Dole didn't
yep,
didn't sell Viagra to pharmacists. He sold Viagra to civilians so
yep,
that they understood that this is something that was viable. And then the industry caught up with them after the fact. So
yep.
what do you think in terms of what are you guys doing in terms of educating the consumer to make sure they understand that this is a viable option for them and the family?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think the first hurdle with that type of marketing to the consumer is we haven't reached a point of federal legalization. So there's a level of creativity that has to be implemented. Some of the organizations that are up and running, they're doing things like having flyers put in everyone's mailbox in a particular apartment building. And they're just working with the building management or whoever to get an understanding of who all the residents are in a particular building, and working with their branding and marketing company to create whatever message it is, and then just having those flyers or whatever put directly in the mailboxes. We're not operational yet, so we're not there yet. So we're still going through that development phase. But I think through social media, and then again, our involvement with these various organizations, whether it's the NCIA or the CBAI, these are networking events that are being created and thought of that are then becoming more community focused. So we're in conversations right now about hosting possible events in our area for spring of next year where the surrounding community that we're operating in can come and interact and network with these companies, their liaisons, etc., firsthand, because there are certain things we can't do. We can't go out and buy a TV ad right now. We're on the processing and manufacturing side. State law will not allow us to, we're not going to be slapping stuff up on the outside of our building. So people really won't know where we are operating out of and what exactly it is we're doing. So we have to get more boots on the ground with it. And I think we're going to do that through continuing to expand our role on the networking events, but then also through social media and just reaching out to individuals directly who already tapped into the networks we're a part of. You know, from an education perspective, I would like to start putting myself and others that I've taught with in the past in a position where maybe we can start working with these schools to actually be the professors to teach firsthand to these students, because this is something that they're interested in. It's just something people don't know how to navigate. My mother, again, someone who did not want me to do anything with cannabis, my conversations with her have led her to a point where she's willing to support me in my efforts 100%, simply because she understands you're watching an industry being created as baby boomers and others are moving out of business. And this is an industry that can really support the future of this country. A lot of your future leaders are going to come from the cannabis industry because we're getting involved in a way that other industries do not allow us to, because it's so immature, because it's so new. And so, again, I
You
think
know,
the big thing.
a lot of people think that the baby boomers, you got to remember, the baby boomers are the ones who have passed the legislation to make it legal. The baby boomers
Exactly.
are the ones who remember that when they were in high school and in junior high school, they were smoking, and now they're still successful in life later on.
Exactly.
If you look in places like Israel and other places around the world, cannabis is considered a geriatric drug.
Yep.
You completely throw out an entire population, one of the biggest populations or demographics in America, if you don't focus on selling to those people who are taking, an inordinate amount of medication that they wouldn't
Yep.
have to take if they were taking cannabis instead. So,
Exactly.
as part of what we really have to try to see if we can bridge a gap with and make people understand that this is a multi-generational drug, not just a generational drug for this generation right now, who's
Hmm.
using less than their
Yep.
parents.
I
So
agree.
why not market to their parents?
I
You know what I
agree.
mean? People are going to have to start getting to that. So,
And
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I agree 100%. We uh when we did our brand folio, we winter haze, and we talk about haze, and it's like, we actually had to give a nod to like 1960 Santa Clara, California. I mean,
Sure.
and so then on top of that, you look at just the history, the world's becoming more health conscious. So, people are smoking less, but the edibles, those infusers, they're providing a way for people to get the medicine, the cannabis that they need in a more healthy fashion. So, I agree with you 100%. And when you look at the world becoming more health conscious, and then you look at the older generation, if you can provide them with an opportunity to ingest the medicine in a more healthy way, or way that's less harsh on their bodies, I agree with you 100%. There's a huge need there that needs to be provided.
So, what do you think some of the bigger, we're outside of time, but what's the biggest challenge that you face right now in this industry?
I think the biggest challenge is going to be securing financing. Um, this is a big ticket industry. This is an industry that it costs a lot of money to get the right assistance. And then because of how lucrative the industry is, it takes a lot to try to retain the ownership of your country, of your company. So I think finance, and then with it being federally legal, I mean, there are many challenges that you may not even consider until you experience them. Um, we sent money to pay our consultant who was not based in Illinois. There was no product exchanged. We were just paying for services. That led to bank accounts being closed because it was looked at as cannabis related funds crossing, or it was looked at as a form of, interstate trafficking, because we paid for cannabis services and that money crossed state lines. So, you have challenges like that in the industry, and it all comes back to financing. So securing financing will always be one of the most challenging items. We tried to get around that by creating an opportunity for people to invest indirectly in cannabis, but still get significant benefits by doing that. And so what we did is we targeted properties in an opportunity zone. and we created opportunity zone funds. So essentially, we created a legal tax shelter for investors and their capital gains. So we're now using our investors and their capital gains to purchase our properties and allowing them to essentially, like playing an HGTV game. We have this property and there's nothing really in it. You guys help us buy it, but we're going to put what, $20+ million build out on here. So your investment will go up. So we're taking that mindset to allow us to retain as much of our company as possible, but still allow investors to get the benefits of indirectly being part of cannabis. And then at the same time, having deferred, having to not to pay taxes on that capital gain for 2026, but then also giving us access to that money for 10 years and putting them in a position where when they pull those funds out in 10 years, they don't have to pay taxes on the money that they net. So we've kind of set it up in a way where, okay, maybe this will be a little bit more attractive to investors, whether it is an individual investor or a company, because there's benefits here that, are significant. But that still doesn't remove the fact that there are other license holders that are going to struggle for capital, and that even though we've set this up, we still need to keep options on the table to secure capital. There's only a handful of banks that are open or public about supporting cannabis businesses. And even though we were notified back on July 15th that we had received licenses, at that time, the state's loan program had not been finalized. So, just kind of allowing time for the stars to align based off the things that are in the works now is important, but getting to a point where, license holders can go out and, through the value of their license, through the team they put together, through the opportunity that's present, secure capital through a bank or some financial institution without going through all the hurdles.
Is that what you hope happens in this industry in the next year, maybe the next 5 years?
Hope, yes. Do I think that's what's going to happen? No. I don't see, me personally, I don't see federal legalization taking place for a few more years. Part of that is just me understanding the political landscape and understanding the many moving parts. And I'm becoming more familiar with that through my involvement in the NCIA and the CBAI. This was my first year with both of those organizations and the committee, and so I learned a lot. And as a project manager, you're always focused on scope, budget, and schedule. And I think over this past year, I've had a very good understanding of the timing and the scheduling of some of these events and the conversations that need to happen and have happened. So yes, I would like to see it. Realistically, I don't see it happening as soon as people would like. Over the next year, what I would really like to see is organizations like the NCIA really take the lead on, starting to standardize what each of these states are doing on an individual basis in preparation for federal legalization. Because when that happens, that's going to be an effort that is going to be undertaken anyways. And there's nothing wrong with getting ahead of the curve, especially understanding some of the challenges that exist now. Social equity is being defined many different ways across an array of states. There are states that are doing some things well and other things poorly, and vice versa. And so really, through a collaborative effort, starting to understand what should be pulled from various states and start to kind of standardize that process, I think is going to be key. Because there's so much information floating around, and it just depends on what state you're talking about. So I think that would be key over the next year. And I think that will also start to lead to more social equity applicants receiving licenses, just because the process will be more streamlined.
If people want to get more information about what you're doing, Winston, is there a website or someplace they can go to get it?
They can send me an email, WMcCauley, MCCAULEY at winterhazellc.com. And any emails I receive, I'll be sure to respond to as soon as possible. I'm also on LinkedIn. Again, first name is Winston. Last name is McCauley, McCauley. I'm on LinkedIn, and it probably shows me as a senior project manager. So always willing to connect with individuals on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Well, look, my friend, I can't thank you enough for being a part of Let's Be Blunt with Montel today, and offer you an opportunity if you have got a home here. So whenever you want to come back and chop it up a little bit about what's going on in the industry, please feel free to do so. And then, let's remind ourselves, remember to connect offline, to talk a
Absolutely.
little bit more about those possibilities of white labeling in your area.
Sounds good. I really appreciate it. Can't thank you enough for this opportunity, and look forward to speaking with you soon.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much for being a part of the show today. And thank you for tuning in to this edition of Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Thanks for joining me on Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear your feedback also, so please send us your comments.